Jimmy's a legend.
I mean, this Jimmy Jam is coming out here in a minute. Come on.
To hear from that kind of wisdom and experience.
I wasn't ready for this moment.
Journey starts with one step, right?
It's Jimmy Jam.
Because I think music is the divine art. There's music that people want, and then there's music that people need.
It's like as a producer, like we'll all listen to records and find something that can apply to what we're working on currently.
That have that kind of power to move people.
It was great to hear from Jimmy Jam.
Really excited to hear what he had to say, the fact that he was so honest.
That's the greatness of music.
Got me rocks.
Oh, hey, Mom, how are you? It's Jimmy Jam, how are you?
My name is David Messier. I'm the president of the Texas chapter of the Recording Academy. Welcome to the Grammy Pro Up Close and Personal with Jimmy Jam.
He is an icon, he is a legend, but most important of all to me, a very good friend. Would you please welcome him to Austin tonight, the one and only Jimmy Jam. Jimmy? As of next week, Jimmy and his partner Terry Lewis will be admitted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame. It's hard to argue against the fact that you guys are the most successful songwriting and production team in the music business, and you've been doing it for so many years. You are survivors and thrivers when it comes to doing what you do so well. I mean, you know, you've had more Billboard #1 hits than anybody. You've had over 100 gold, platinum, multi-platinum albums. But I'd kind of like to explore the path that led you to who you are and where you are today. You went to junior high school with Prince, became friends when you were just teenagers.
Yep. Prince was the one we were all really happy about that he made it. The biggest thing Prince taught me was work ethic. And then there's a few people who are gifted beyond belief, but they outwork everybody. That was Prince. So Prince used to come to our rehearsals, rehearse us all day, go to his rehearsal, worked with the Revolution all day. Then he'd go to the studio and then he'd record. And then he'd walk in the next day with a cassette, because this is the cassette days. And he'd pop a cassette in and he'd go, I did this last night. And it would be 1999. You know, like fully done, like a whole song done. And we'd be like, man, when do you sleep? You know, for me personally, the story, the turning point for me was we were rehearsing 777, 9311. He would come to our rehearsals. And we were running through the song. And it was a simple song for me to play because I only really had to play with one hand. There was really nothing for me to do. And when the run through ended, he said, Jimmy Jam, what are you doing with your left hand? And I said, not doing anything, Prince. He says, you got to play with both hands. Copy the part that Monty's doing. And I said, it's not like that on the record, Prince. He said, gonna be better than the record. I said, okay, cool. So now I'm playing with both hands and I'm doing my thing. We run through the song again. He goes, Jimmy Jam, what note are you singing on the, what harmony are you singing on the chorus? I said, I'm not singing a harmony. It's 3-part harmony, and Terry and Morris and Jesse got it. Find a note. It's got to be better than the record. Okay, fine. So now I'm singing, I'm playing 777 93 11. So I'm doing all that. Song ends, he goes, Jimmy Jam, why aren't you doing the choreography? I said, Prince, I said, it's I'm a keyboard player, man. I said, I can't really do the choreography. He said, simply you should do the choreography. So now I'm trying to do all three things. I'm trying to hit the thing. It's just a 4 corners. So it just was a simple little step. And I'm trying to do this and sing my note. I can't do it. I'm so frustrated. We get home. We come back to practice the very next day. Prince walks in. He says, 777 93 11. And I'm like going, oh, here we go. We launch into the song. And without even thinking about it, I hit everything perfectly. And I remember thinking, wow.
Prince wanted you to be the best that you could be, and he brought that out of people.
He brought it out, and he actually made people better.
Your big breakthrough came in the mid-'80s, and in large part due to the breakthrough album for Janet Jackson, Control. Mm-hmm. How did that change things for you guys?
The Control record was no different making that record than making any other record we had made up to that point, which was kind of interesting. We'd always been very collaborative with the artists. We'd always ask the artists kind of what they wanted to sing about or what they wanted to do, and then we would craft the music that way. The thing that always happens is when you have something that's a success, everybody wants the same exact thing, you know? So it was like, when they would come to us, they'd almost say, give me something just like Control, you know? And it'd be like, no, that's Janet's record. You know, those sounds and those things we did on that record, we're really not going to do those on other records, or we're going to attempt not to do that. I never wanted to have an artist feel uncomfortable about having a song out that sounded just like somebody else's song. When we're done with the mix, we're done with the record. For them, it's just the beginning. They have to sing that record the rest of their life. It better be something that means something to them and is unique to them.
Were you prepared for the hip-hop explosion that hit in the 90s? And when that kind of super sweet mega funk sound that you guys were so good at seemed to be at odds with this new sound from the East and West Coast?
First of all, we never got into the kind of malaise of, oh, that's not real music, or that's, whatever. I mean, I was for instance, when Rapper's Delight came out, I remember I was DJing at the time. And what it did for me, it took a kid from the Midwest, from Minneapolis, and made me feel like I was on the streets of New York, because the sonic landscape of those records, of those early hip-hop records, were so, amazing to me. So they put me in that place. It was the idea of taking samples and really building songs around the sample. I think we always felt very comfortable in that environment because we were always very welcoming to it, and we always accepted it and loved it. And we were dealing with groups that wanted it. When we did the New Edition Heartbreak album, we had, people know Can You Stand the Rain and If It Isn't Love in those records. But we also had, things like Any Heartbreak, which were basically rap songs incorporated into that. So we always enjoyed it. And the other part of it was sampling, because a lot of people figured that we wouldn't like sampling because we were musicians. And it's like, no, but sampling is amazing because you get to basically take something that either was a hit back in the day or pieces of things and make a whole new song out of it, which I thought was always very cool. While it was changing, our thing was always, we want to give people the records they want. So if people wanted that element in those records, we were very comfortable with that and embraced it, I think.
What would you say are you most proud of?
Simple, short answer is Optimistic by the Sounds of Blackness. From the Twin Cities area. We grew up not only listening to them, but also playing gigs with them back in the day. So the chance to actually record them, and they were our first signing to when we did our record label Perspective in the 90s. They were our first signing. And when we did Optimistic, it was, my partner Terry always says, there's music that people want, and then there's music that people need. And we felt like Optimistic was something that was needed. That song was needed. And the fact that it did a lot of nice things. I mean, it went number one. It was like the first gospel record to go number one since, I think, Edwin Hawkins' Oh Happy Day. Won a Grammy. There's a lot of positive things. But the best thing about that record was the reaction that we still get when people come up and they go, that's my jam. That's the record that gets me up in the morning when I'm feeling bad. That's the record that gets me going. And that to me is the ultimate thing that music is, because I think music is the divine art, is what I call it. Because of the way it's able to stir emotions. Chance the Rapper, I remember it was the day of the inauguration. He did something called the Optimistic Challenge. And he put the song up, and it was him and a bunch of his boys just kind of dancing to the song. And it went kind of viral, and people started putting up their own optimistic challenges and stuff. And people that knew we wrote the song would say to us, oh my God, I sure needed that song today, And I remember seeing Chance at the Grammys, or the day before the Grammys, and I said to him, hey, I really like that Optimistic Challenge. I'm glad you did that. I thought it was real cool. And he said, I just felt like, our people really needed something to be optimistic about and, keep your heads up and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, man. I said, that's why we wrote it, man. I said, it's one of our favorites we ever did. And he said, wait, y'all did that song? It's like, yeah. And so he didn't even know it. But that to me is the beauty of music and the timelessness of I think great music. It doesn't have an expiration date. So I'm proud of all of those moments where music has connected people, has touched feelings and influenced people. When people say to me, man, I grew up listening to you and you influenced what we do. That's the greatness of music.
Mr. Jimmy Jam, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Drove all the way from Miami, actually, to be here to
Wow.
say thank you for being an inspiration, at least to myself, as a songwriter.
Thank you, wow.
Been songwriting for at least over a decade. Just this year, for the first time, I received a Grammy nomination.
Awesome.
But as an example of life to me, as I was raising my hand a few times, like she noticed, it was like, okay, she went here, you went around me, you went over here, you went to the front. So to me, it feels like a lot. That's how life is as a songwriter. It's like you're being overlooked. It's like, okay, well, that guy, that's my friend. Like, I write better than him. How did he get this? So what advice would you give someone like myself that a lot of times you want to give up because you see everybody around you, you know, coming up, and you're like, geez, will anybody notice me? What advice would you give a songwriter that looks to work with, you know, someone of your caliber?
Well, the real simple answer is keep raising your hand. You did it and you got called upon. I think the thing that happens is people find themselves, and they use the word waiting, I'm waiting for my break, and I always say substitute the word waiting with preparing, because you have your whole life to prepare for the break. Once the break happens, how you react to it from that moment on is the telling thing. That's why there's a sophomore slump. Mm-hmm. People make that first album and it's like amazing, and then the next album you're kind of like, They had their whole life to come up with the first album, and they might have 6 months to come up with the second one. So I just say be prepared and keep raising your hand, man. Keep making those drives from Miami.
Thank you all for coming out tonight.
What he said about, you know, preparing for your break instead of like feeling like you missed it is so true. Like, because the moments that I feel like nothing's going right is when whoop, everything kind of just turns around. And so it was just nice to like hear that kind of perspective from someone that I've respected my entire life.
You know, journey starts with one step, right? So, yeah.